here with Gareth. Gareth, new season approaching. A lot of talk last season about development within the region. As head of regional development, can you just tell us a little bit more about the pathway and how important it is in terms of sustaining this sort of success for the future of the Scarlets, really?
Yes, it's a huge strategic responsibility to all regions, not only ourselves, but each region will have its own realisation about how important development is going forward. And what's happened in the last 7 years since we've become regions is that we've evolved. We became regionalised in 2003, we 10 this year. And within that period of development, I think the emphasis and focus has actually been primarily by the union initially, realising how important academies were to development of the game. But without a doubt, in the last 3 or 4 years, the regions have embraced, realised and challenged themselves to look after their development pathways. And what's vital in all this, for all of us, is the relationship between the union and the regions themselves, and each region's relationship with its union employees who work within the structure. There are two arms really to the region's development. One is the community game, which in our region Jeff Roach looks after with a team of 5 full-time paid development officers. And there's Kevin George who looks after the academy, who's got another 4 employees. Now our partnerships are vital. Now my partnership in our region with Jeff and Kevin couldn't be better, and we have to work in partnership. So it's important to identify and clarify that to start with. And then from then on really, it's really getting to understand the mechanics of development, the mechanics of how the game is built in Wales, what it's made from, where it comes from. And we're hugely indebted to the community game. They're the building block really, they're the participation arm of the product in Wales. And what they do, they structure and set up development. They start kids playing at 7, 8, 9. This is where tag rugby evolves, this is where the community gets its relationship with the young children of each region, and it goes from there. Now that's vital. We have to have participation, we have to challenge participation, and it has to grow. And we have to make sure we understand that that is happening and how we can help that to happen.
So it starts very young. I mean, a lot of people focus on the academies and players at sort of 17, 18, but actually what you're talking about is starting
much sooner than that. And then what happens then really is where I come into it, and where my focus as regional development in the Scarlets, I've then got to start looking at how the elite end of the game starts developing. And it starts at 11-year-old. There's a DC Cup competition which involves all teams right throughout Wales, and they represent their towns. Llanelli and the Lems play in the DC Cup, Carmarthen will play in the DC Cup. And the processes involved in that really is that they do filter, there are structures, there are selection processes, and people have this ability to select the best kids at that age, pull them together, and they play for 1 season in a representative level. Now that's when we start getting the cream. This is where we start identifying the very best of all those kids that play. We bring them into competition level. And at 12, 13 and 14 there's a national tournament then that underpins those age grades. And they're the districts really. And again the Welsh Rugby Union manages that magnificently. It's well structured, well organised. Back at 15 then the structure comes back together. We play Dual Shield rugby, and from 15 years on then they come back to represent their towns, and then after that they start then looking at the reality of the potential. From 15 on you can start seeing whether the player is going to, he's playing a rounded game, he's playing in a structure then that involves proper scrimmaging, proper lineouts, and we can still then start taking an opinion about their talent and their potential. And that's where I come into it then. From 16 to 18 there's 2 national tournaments. The national age grade 16 and 18 tournament, which is a fantastic tournament, which is regional. The very best regional kids then come together for the very first time. They then put their regional kits on for the first time. A hugely exciting programme, hugely exciting. And that involves North Wales, it involves the Dragons, the Blues, the Ospreys and the Scarlets, and they play home and away against each other. And at the end of that tournament, I then look at who I think there will become our next group of academy players.
Right.
And that's when we bring them in.
And how many academy players have we got this season, and how is it, how is the kind of the pathway moving forward at the moment for the Scarlets?
We'll always try to look at around about 20 players. Currently, I think we're 22. Right? It's around about 20. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, our businesses only have got a certain amount of money that they can attach to development. And to service more than 20 players would actually stretch us. We put a serious amount of money into development, a serious amount of money, and that allows us to look at a group of about 20 players that we can put through a 3-year programme.
But that's the start of the journey.
And that's the start of the journey. And it goes on from there, really. The first 2 years is a very general development. We've got to get them physically developed in the gym. We've got to get them into good habits, into good nutritional habits. We've got to get them into good conditioning habits. And we've got to get them lifting and becoming very familiar with loading themselves with weights. Because we've got to build rugby athletes these days. And that's a 2-year block, and that covers them while they're actually still in school. In the 3rd year, then, we have to then be a little bit more discerning. We probably then make a cut. Any boys that have for whatever reasons developed, we continue with. For boys who may be not developing, for lots of different reasons, we then actually release them from the process.
Right, okay. And just looking now at the Premiership as well, great success last season. Great to see, Carmarthen and Connecticut playing in the final. How important is the Premiership now, as well as in terms of a learning ground, a training ground for then the first team?
It's essential. It's the missing link, really, in many respects. And it's something I was very focused on when I came into the job 2 years ago. My priority, because the academies are in good shape, the structures underneath aren't in bad shape. It's the missing link is when this guy becomes 19-year-old, where does he go? Because he's not ready to be a pro player. He's not equipped to be a pro player physically. And how do we take his next 2 years of his development pathway on? And it has to be through the Premiership model. Now, the Premiership model is exciting. It's got fantastic potential. And Welsh Rugby probably needs to recognise and focus on it, maybe as more of a priority than we do currently. Lots of good things going on. We've got a British and Irish Cup now, which is challenging the better teams in the league. But as far as I'm concerned, I still think there's work in progress. I think ourselves, along with the unions who are our partners in this, I think we have to realise that the Premiership is key. It's a vital cog, really, in the development pathway. And I'm pretty proud of what's happened in the last couple of years down in our region, because there's been a big emphasis put on it. We originally were 2, there was Llandudno and Llanelli. Delighted that Carmarthen were able to get into the Premiership, which gives us 3 Premiership teams. Last season was a big success because it was both Llanelli and Carmarthen reached the Sweater Cup final, which we were proud of. And Llandudno were magnificent in their endeavours last year, and they've got themselves into the top 6 teams in the league, which means they represent Wales in the British and Irish Cup next year. So we've got 2 teams in that. And it's testimony, really, to the hard work that goes into building this important part of our development.
And as far as some of the names we've seen over the summer going into the Wales tour, people like Tavis and Rob, and obviously products of the academy system, developing that Welsh talent is a key, really, to what the Scarlets are doing, and is showing some of that success already. Yes,
and 2 good examples, Antonia, because both of them played probably for the first 4 months last year for Llanelli. They were playing Premiership rugby September, October, November, while they were being developed. At the halfway period in the season, they both got into the first team, proved themselves. At the end of the year, they're on a national tour. So, it only proves how quick and how quickly people can accelerate, and how important the pathway stages are, really, to it all.
And you've got a very broad view of development across the region. You're saying from 11 all the way up. How bright is the future? Obviously, a lot of hard work has been done over many years. It's not just about the last season, it's time before that. So how bright is the future in terms of looking at the overall picture?
I think Welsh Rugby has to be really awakened to what is going on. We have to be realistic that there's some real quality work going on across all regions, not only ourselves. We're putting a particular focus on what we think is important, and I'm sure the others are doing the same. But along with all this, we can't ignore the union's role in this either. You know, they are totally supportive. They're behind all these initiatives. They fund it currently, and they work with us. They work alongside us, and we've got the same ambition for Welsh Rugby to develop our own. And some of the interesting facts, really, currently in our squad, for all those people who are eligible to be in academies, and there's some like Stephen Jones who was before academy, and Dav Jones who was before academy, Justin Thomas was before academy. Our foreign players weren't able to, but out of all the players in our squad currently, 31 of them have come through the actual academy pathway. 31. That's something like 81% of all our playing squad here, currently senior playing squad, has come through the Welsh Rugby Union stroke academy development. And, you know, it's a pro statistic. It's a real statistic. What I'm striving for, to become more efficient in getting not 20% of our product through, but getting 50% of our product through. And that's really the type of focus now that we're able to work on, because a lot of the things that matter are actually in place.
Thank you very much, guys. It's given us a really good insight, and obviously quite enthused by us, and there's a lot going on.
Tons, we're all enjoying every minute.
Okay, thanks.